Salutations to everyone, those listening for the very first time and those returning to this channel here. We have a very informative presentation for your ears to enjoy and your mind to enjoy. We're going to go over Ireland, the foundation of Ireland. We have some source material here that we will use as an appetizer, and then this will just be part one over here. So without further ado, we're gonna get into it. Hey man, what you gonna tell me about these river dancing people that I don't already know, cuz? Hey, let me get to it, man. Calm down, let me get to it. Hey cuz, all I know is if I don't learn anything new, you owe me the most expensive Irish whiskey I can find, cuz. You understand? Oh yeah? Okay. Hey, well, I'll tell you what. Sit back and open up your ears and here we go. Yeah, cuz, I just may do that, alright? Hurry up, read. And don't put me to sleep this time, cuz. Okay, so my method is to read from a particular source, give commentary on said source, rinse and repeat until I'm done and exhausted all of my sources and commentary. Okay, so batting leadoff of this historical game, information game, is the history of Ireland. We have this book, The History of Ireland by Thomas More, and on the PDF version, I will read from page 71, but if you have the hard copy version, it will be page 75. But this is the PDF here, page 71, and we're just gonna start right here in the highlighted portion, and it reads: the fierce wars waged by this people with the Fomorians, a tribe of African sea rovers who then infested the coast of Ireland, form one of the most picturesque subjects of the ancient Irish muse. The stronghold of these African mariners, who are supposed not improbably to have been Carthaginian traders, was the Tower of Conan, which stood upon an island on the seacoast of Ulster, named from this structure Tor Ennis, or the island of the tower. This fortress the Nemedians stormed, and after dislodging from thence their formidable enemy, left not a trace of the mighty structure standing. An Irish poem called The Storming of the Tower of Conan still exists in the noble library of Stow. The Fomorians, however, having been joined by fresh supplies of force, a general battle by land and sea ensued, in which the Africans were victorious, and the Nemedian colony being all dispersed and destroyed. The country was once more left at the mercy of those foreign marauders, and relapsed into wildness and desolation from the space of 200 years. The next, and in number the third of these colonies, which was known to the Irish by the name of Fir-Bolgs, first imposed upon them, it is said, the yoke of regal authority, and dividing the island into 5 parts or provinces, established that pentarchal form of government, which continued with but few interruptions till the 12th century of our era. Alright, so my reason for highlighting this page right here and reading it is just to let you guys know that there is an element of melanated people, on that Irish coast right there. It mentioned the sea rovers, how they had a stronghold on that island, and then there's a native population, the Fir-Bolgs, there also. So this right here is not in chronological order right now, but we will discuss the chronology of all of this at the end of this video. But just keep this in mind right here, that swarthy or dark skinned element was indeed present on the island of Ireland. Okay, so we're on page 72 now, and the highlighted portion, it says they were dispossessed by the Tuatha De Danann, a people famed for necromancy, who, after sojourning for some time in Greece, where they had learned this mysterious art, proceeded from thence to Denmark and Norway, and became possessors while in those countries of certain marvelous treasures. Okay, let's drop down. And it says, armed with these wonderful gifts, the tribe of the Danans next found their way to Scotland, and after a rest there for some years, set sail under the auspices of their chieftain Nuad of the Silver Hand for Ireland. Okay, I know I just kind of glossed over a lot, but I'm gonna show the full portion of this page, the full page right here, and you guys can kind of pause and read 71 and 72 to get the full context of what is happening. But I'm just touching on the highlighted portion. That's the portion that I think is more important, to make the point, to paint that picture that I'm trying to that you guys see right here. Okay, so we will definitely touch on these Danans later on once we speak on the European tribes and speak on migration and settlement. These people will come up again, but in the meantime, let's move on. Now on to page 73, and the highlighted portion reads, the victorious Danans became in their turn sole masters of the country. In process of time, the Tuatha De Danann were themselves dispossessed of their sway, a successful invasion from the coast of Spain having put an end to the Dananian dynasty and transferred the scepter into the hands of that Milesian or Scotic race, which through so long a series of succeeding ages supplied Ireland with her kings. This celebrated colony, though coming directly from Spain, was originally, we are told, of Scythic race, and its various migrations and adventures before reaching its Isle of Destiny in the west are detailed by our bards with all that fond and lingering minuteness in which fancy, playing with its own creations, so much delights to indulge. Okay, and again, you can just pause the whole video right there and just read this entire page to get the full context of what is being said. Now we are on page 91, and the highlighted portion reads that the Picts were the original inhabitants of North Britain, and the same people with the Caledonians seems now universally admitted, and among the various opinions held as to their origin, the conjecture of Camden that they were but Britons under another name, some indigenous to that region, others driven thither or there by the terror of the Roman arms, has been hitherto the opinion most generally received. It is to be recollected, however, that Camden, in pronouncing the Picts to have been Britons, took for granted that the ancient Britons were the same people with the Welsh, thereby confounding two races which there is every reason to believe were wholly distinct. The extraction claimed by the Welsh themselves, and as it appears, on no insufficient grounds from those ancient Cimbri whose martial virtue the pen of Tacitus has immortalized at once distinguishes their race from that of the first inhabitants of Britain, who were, it is generally allowed, pure Celts or Gael, while the Cimbri, who lent their name to the northern Chersonese, yeah, I butchered that, but from whence the Teutonic tribes inundated Europe were themselves no less decidedly Teutons. Just a heads up, in the PDF version, what I just read is page 91, but if you are reading from the hard copy, it is page 99. Now, I don't have much to add or anything to add really. I will say that there are more sources so we can properly compare and contrast and do like comparative research on all of these things, because in this book right here, I know they're saying a lot and it can be somewhat confusing, but the more sources that you read, you can line it up and compare everything and come to a better comprehension of what is being said regarding the history of Ireland. And we will do that. Pages 92 and 93. I'm going to start on 92 towards the bottom, and it reads, "This region, the mountain territory of the ancient Picts, supplies, in the parts of North Britain once inhabited by the mysterious people, the language of the Cymry is still alive in the names of those permanent features of nature which alone defy oblivion, and tell the story of the first dwellers to all the races that succeed them. Taking these and some other circumstances that shall presently be mentioned into consideration, it is hardly possible, I think, to resist the conclusion that the people called Picts were the progenitors of the present Welsh, being themselves a branch of that Cimbric stock from whence all the traditions of the latter people represent them to have been derived, and that instead of the Welsh having become the Picts, as was supposed by Camden and others, the result of the evidence shows, on the contrary, that the Picts became the Welsh." Drop down, and it reads, "Breaking through the long guarded frontier, they took possession without any struggle of all the midland provinces, reaching from the wall of Northumberland to the friths of Forth and Clyde, and there established that regnum cumbrance or kingdom of Strathclyde, in whose mixed population, composed as it was of all the tribes of North Britain, their old distinctive name of Picts began first to be unsettled and disused. Here, however, we're going into 94 right here. Okay, I'm right off the top. Here, however, they continued to maintain themselves against all the efforts of the Saxons to dispossess them, and under the German name of Wali, or Welsh, bestowed upon them by the invaders, may be traced as acting a distinguished part in the affairs of Britain for many centuries after." Okay, drop down, and it says, "It may be added as another strong confirmation of the identity between the Strathclyde Welsh and the Picts that from the time of the total defeat of the latter by Kenneth MacAlpin, King of the Scots, no further mention occurs of the kingdom of Strathclyde. Interesting. As you can see here, as more people start settling in and colonizing that island, the original people who were once known as Picts, they became known as the Welsh, because it says that where is it at? The under the German name of the Wali or Welsh, bestowed upon them by the invaders. So really, if you are living in the USA, Australia, that is a concept that you can definitely understand and comprehend well, because the history that our history is the same thing. There were native people here, then colonizers came in and called them a different name. And if you live on the continent of Africa, you definitely can understand that too, because colonizers came in and did whatever they wanted. They renamed and all that stuff. But let's go to the next page now. I think this is pretty important here, and it's something to keep note of. Okay, when it talks about another strong confirmation of the identity between the Strathclyde Welsh and the Picts, that from the time of the total defeat of the latter by keep his name in mind, Kenneth MacAlpin, King of the Scots. Now, I did an etymology video and surnames and forename video. Now, Kenneth MacAlpin, that's one that we're gonna go over a little bit later in another video. But you know what his name means, then you know what the original people looked like. Okay, it's gonna make sense in a minute. So the next book that we will read will be coming from the book entitled Proceedings of the Royal Irish Academy, Polite Literature and Antiquities, Volume 2. Now, when it comes to the authors, this book has like a ton of contributors, but I will only read from one contributor, and that contributor is William Fraser. So you could say he's the author of the portion that I will be reading from. Pages 47 and 48, the highlighted portion reads, "Now of the two primitive Irish races which he designates as Firbolg and Celt, he has given typical figures. One of these, the Firbolg cranium, will in all probability correspond with the remarkable dolichocephalic skull that I have described. These long-headed, black-visaged, dark-haired, swarthy aborigines possessed skulls that are principally characterized by their extreme length from before backward, or what is technically termed the antero-posterior diameter, and the flatness of their sides." He says, in addition, "Now we find similar conditions of head still existing among the modern inhabitants of this country, particularly beyond the Shannon, where the darker Firbolg race may still be traced as distinct from the more globular-headed, light-eyed, fair-haired Celtic people who lived to the northeast of that river. The earlier primitive intimates of the Celtic race are to be found in Kisbeins or sandstone chambers, and probably they were the race that used urn burial also. Their origin, whence they came, and what countries they inhabited before arriving here, has proved a fertile field for speculation, but still remains an unsettled question. They may be, and probably are, the race termed in old Irish annals Tuatha De Danann, who are said to have invaded and overcome the original Furbog inhabitants, and they would seem to have introduced, or at least known, the use of bronze weapons, just as at a much later period and within historic times, the Scandinavian races were distinguished from their knowledge and free use of weapons made of iron. Okay, we're gonna stop that. Then we're gonna go to this part right there. We notice, therefore, in Sir William Wilde's memoir, 3 separate and distinct classes of skull found in Ireland: the Firbolg, Celtic, and Dane. And it was with much surprise and interest that, after collecting all the crania, all right, that's it. On page 47 and page 48, in the highlighted portion, the main takeaways that you can, glean from is the black visaged. We know visage is like the, complexion, appearance, and complexion. I even have 2 videos where I do go over the etymology of that complexion terminology, the many words that describe a person's complexion. We definitely know that swarthy means dark in color, especially of the skin. So then it mentions on the first page that the Aborigines were swarthy. Then the darker Firbolg race, and then the second page that I read, it talks about the skulls of the Firbolg, the Celtics, and the Danes. Okay, so we're done with that. Let's move on. Pages 53 and 54. We're going to start on the bottom portion down below on page 53, and it reads, the most probable explanation appears to be that it was the result of one of those piratical descents or invasions of the Irish coasts made by robber Vikings, Danners, or Black Danes, and their ferocious allies from the island of Scotland, which were so common in the 9th and 10th centuries. These invasions took place subsequent to and were altogether different from the Scandinavian settlements in Ireland of Lachlan's or Azure Gentiles, who are described in the chronicles of the time by their distinctive features of being a white or fair race. Drop down, and it reads, of different race came the Danar, the black or dark-haired foreigner who fought against and plundered the fair Norsemen as fiercely as he warred with and robbed the native Irishry. But as Dr. Todd remarks, it is to be regretted that the writers of our annals do not always clearly distinguish between them in their descriptions of their devastations in Ireland. We cannot even be sure that the name Dane is not sometimes given to the Norwegian. The word Dane in later times was used to signify pirate robber, a cruel and ferocious barbarian without distinction of nation. Hey guys, bear with me. I know my voice be very raspy sometimes because I record either late at night or early in the morning. So yeah, I'll be tired sometimes, but I just want to get these things out. Now notice the correlation right here. You compare the first source with the second source and the third source, and it says the same thing. It's talking about piratical activity by Africans. Then it talks about indigenous Firbolg swarthy people. Then it mentions Danes, then Celts, then Firbolgs, and it's saying the same thing. You just have to pair all the information up together, and we have some more information that we can piece together right here. And it'll paint that whole picture, put all the puzzle pieces together right there. Up next, we have a very good source called Phases of Irish History by Ewan MacNeil. Okay, so this is page 76 of chapter 3, and the chapter is entitled The Pre-Celtic Inhabitants of Ireland. Pages 77 and 78, the highlighted portion reads, ethnologists are agreed that, apart altogether from the Celtic migrations, there must have been a mixture of very distinct races in southwestern Europe in prehistoric times. So far as the Iberian theory is not mere vacuum filling, it appears to rest on a single passage of Tacitus. He is describing the Silures, a British people whose territory was in the south of Wales, and who offered a very fierce resistance to the Romans. The swarthy complexion of the Silures, he says, the prevalence of curly hair among them, and their position over against Spain argue that the ancient Iberians must have crossed over and occupied their territory. We have often heard the occurrence of similar physical traits in the west of Ireland ascribed to a more recent Spanish mixture. It all amounts to this, which Irish tradition bears out, and which nobody questions, that these Western Isles contain descendants of an ancient, dark-complexioned population, probably already of mixed race, which existed in Western Europe before the arrival of the fair-complexioned people, whose distinctive features appear by all indications to have originated in the lands forming the basin of the Baltic Sea. That's really saying a lot right there. I mean, we have old primary sources, Tacitus himself giving his description of the people. I mean, what happened? What's the disconnect, man? I mean, this stuff used to be so prevalent and well known. So why do we have so much disconnect and haze and cloudiness and mysterious nature around all of this stuff today? I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but we're gonna go on to the next source, the Batting Cleanup, Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 1. It's the heavy hitter source right here. Chapter 4, page 62, reads, the savages, wild men, or wood men of heraldry, sometimes represented as white men, sometimes as black, are almost always naked, with the exception of a wreath round the head and another round the loins. Okay, drop down. The wild Irishmen or black Irishmen, presumably of the same race, were the same. Those, says Strabo, that nowadays make a survey of the different countries of the world find nothing to relate of any country beyond Ireland, which lies to the north and near Britain, and is inhabited by men entirely wild. Okay, drop down a little bit. Ireland had its Cruithni as Scotland had its Picts. Okay, going into 63, it reads, the existence of a race of wild people is told by the Irish legends themselves. Fionn, the firm chief of the Féin, blue-eyed, golden-haired, marble-skinned, whose knightly attributes were dwelt on in the preceding chapter, had as many people know as the chiefest of his followers, the equally heroic Diarmid. And butchering that, okay. Although so familiar to Celtic scholars, is yet not so widely known as to render it necessary to apologize for sketching it here. Drop down some more, it reads, it seems pretty certain, however, that the north of Ireland and the western and perhaps central Scotland formed the theater in which the scenes were enacted, and about the 3rd century is regarded as the era. Now, what we just read tells us clearly that there were two different types of complexions there belonging to two different types of people. I mean, I'm just gonna say it, Dub and Fionn. That's white, black. You know, you can say Caucasian in today's terms. You can say melanated in today's terms, but those were the people making up the island right there. Can't get around it. Cannot get around it. Page 68 reads, the my airtight or marsh folk against whom Severus fought were Caledoni, nicknamed Picti, known as Moors or black men of the race of the Damnoni, who had curly hair and swarthy skins, which they tattooed with their family totems. They wore nothing except their weapons, like Zulus or any other dark-skinned, not gonna say savages, but people. They smeared their faces with the blood of their foes. Hey, sorry for cutting it right there. The rest is kind of irrelevant going forward, but this piece right here is very pertinent information because it's making these connections there. You know, Caledoni, Pictish people, then it's telling you how similar they are to the Zulus and I guess other tribes of Africa and things of that nature. Now, it's going to make a lot more sense in future videos. I'm definitely going to make that connection, but let's move forward here. Actually, before that, it's telling you that these guys are dark-skinned people. Page 77 reads, with regard to the former, it may be stated that there was formerly a huge idol of gold surrounded by 12 idols of stone ornamented with brass, which stood in the marsh of Slate in County Cavan, and which was the god of all the people which possessed Erin till the coming of Padric. This central figure was known as the Crom Cruach, or the Red Chrome, while another idol in the western parts of Connacht was called Crom Dub, or the Black Chrome. Thus, the cry of Crom Abu would appear to belong to the same class as Allah, being partly the invocation to a deity and partly a tribal shout and used in battle to intimidate the foe, as well as for mutual encouragement. Drop down a little bit and it reads, all these things combined the naked swarthy figures of the wild Irishmen, their long and thickly plaited hair, adorned, if today's custom has any meaning, with feathers and sometimes covered with the human skull, the angry, deep bellowing war cry. All these make a picture of complete savagery and argue a state of society and a race at no very remote period closely resembling that which the early colonists found to exist on the other side of the Atlantic. So I don't have anything to add in reference to the information that we just went over, but before I close out, just a reminder, the definition swarthy, that word keeps popping up, so here's the definition right here, and I'll let you guys pause the video and examine it so that you'll have that impressed upon your mind, and you remember that when you read these sources and you hear that description or you see that description, it's talking about who fits. Yeah, let's be real, who fits? Hey, it's too much I guess subterfuge and lies on YouTube. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that, but part 2 of this swarthy or melanated or quote unquote black Ireland will be coming out shortly after this one. All right, you guys be safe out there and take care and keep learning out here.